What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Got a very special podcast, P&N Friends podcast, where we discuss crypto trading, the financial markets, and what's going on in the world this week. Um, we have former investment banker, co-founder of P&N Friends, Pablo Heeman here with me. And Pablo, talk to me, man. We got the Fed decision, we got market collapse, everything going on, ceasefire. What are you looking at right now as a trader?
It's a crazy and huge week. Like it's too much to keep up with. Like if you're a day trader, that could be a rhythm. It's like this. Long-term traders should be okay. My overall trajectory for the US, I think it's up for the next few months. So I would say that for Bitcoin as well. But like I know you talk about politics, but this isn't this crazy. We've just had a ceasefire, which I didn't think we were going to get for a long time because Trump's going ceasefire. Oh no, I'm going to punish Iran. Ceasefire. And then 2 days later, I'm going to punish Iran. I'm going to bring hell down on Iran. 12 hours later, ceasefire. This is someone counted this. Someone counted the back and forth flips. He's done it 33 times now. I guess that like what they say, 33 is the charm, right? 33 is the charm. So finally, it looks like still hasn't been signed yet, but it looks like I think all efforts are for this to get signed on Saturday, I think it is. And also the Federal Reserve first meeting about 24 hours from now. And the thing is, this is a very politically charged meeting. This is a very politically charged Fed. People used to think that great, you've got the charts up. People used to say, hey, look, I think this is going to be the first the Fed is supposed to be independent of the presidency and the White House, the administration. This is probably the first time in US history, I think, where that's largely not true. In the past, with Jerome Powell, I would say it's probably the Fed is 85% independent. Now I think the Fed is probably like 40 to 50% independent. So this is, I know you talk about politics a lot, and I look forward to hearing what you want to say on these subjects as well, because right now, whether it's international politics or American domestic politics, it's so intertwined. Everything's so intertwined with where markets are going, where oil prices are going, where interest rates are going, where inflation's going. It's all in one right now. Like the good old days of just being the guy who says, "Oh, I'm just going to look at PE and PEG, price earnings growth. Look at the ratios of so and what so and so did this quarter." That's not going to cut it, right? That's not going to cut it. I promise you this: guys like Jim Cramer, who don't analyze what's going on in the world, they're going to be caught with, or even what's going down with what's going on with the White House. They're going to be caught with their pants down. I don't want to see that happen to you guys, the people who listen to Neima's podcasts, Neima's audience, or my audience. I want to help you guys out. So that's why we're doing this right here, right now. Before the Federal Reserve makes a decision, we're going to make the predictions. We never shy away from the big calls. We're going to tell folks what we think is going to happen. And you can tell 24, 48 hours from now if we got those calls right or not.
Yeah, it's I know. I mean, I'm in North America. You're in the East from here, or it depends how you look at it. Actually, East West. But the way and you tell me what you think. Like in Asia, for example, in Australia, for example, to me it looks like China won from all of this, and the reason why I think that is because China did not even get involved too much politically. Like they're not hated. They're getting along with Europe. They're winning European allies. America's alienating themselves from Europe. They're even India's saying that they're going to, I guess, go buy more from Russia. Trump has, I guess, and the White House has gotten closer to Pakistan. India is not liking that. So it just seems like Iran actually got away with what they wanted to do. And to me, I feel like instinctively China was just giving them money, and China was, giving them weaponry, and they knew, Pablo, they just had to outlast Trump. And I think that they generally view Trump as an unstable idiot, and they don't have to cater to American politics, and they just waited. And I know there's people that are going to say some conspiracy theory, you know, you know, uh, Pablo's Chinese, Australian, I'm Iranian American. There's a Chinese Iranian guy here talking about this. No, it's not like that. It's just objectively, impartially speaking. It's hard not to say that China won, and I would say that's a boom for Chinese markets, and I would say that's bad for the American dollar. And I don't know how America would. I think this is the peak of American imperialism and power, man, and as an empire that they could not defeat Iran. But I don't know how that translate into the markets as a trader. How would that translate into the market as a trader if that's true?
By the way, I just want to remind everyone that even though Nima talks a lot about politics, we're not here for this episode here to talk about pure politics, because all of this affects, you've seen it affects inflation. It affects inflation takes off, and then the US 10-year treasury yield spikes up. It affects the inflation outlook, the interest rate outlook, the yields outlook. It affects everything. It basically, the Fed decision coming tomorrow, right? By the time you watch this video, you've already seen what the Fed decision is. So what is it affects so many things, and you can't be just like Jim Cramer and only talk about American companies, because there are so many things affecting those American companies. First of all, right off the bat, I will say I'm very surprised with what Nima is saying so far, because from what I understand, you are like a right-wing political commentator. Therefore, it's a shock to me that you're saying, look, as much as we hate to admit it, that China's won on this, they're winning the allies. U.S. can't win a war against Iran. What's happening? Like, isn't this what a left-wing political guy is supposed to be saying? Where are you so disappointed as a right-wing commentator, that you're also saying that, hey, we have to own up to this? There's no other way to spinning this. I'm just curious, is that what's happening? And then I'll explain what I think is happening with oil prices, inflation, and Federal Reserve interest rates, and how that impacts stock markets and crypto and Bitcoin. But we have to understand why first this is maybe not going well, or maybe going well for America. I want to hear your answer first.
Yeah, the thing is that I started studying China. I think when I truly started, it was around, I think it was Hank Paulson's book. It was around 2017, 2018. And I got very fascinated with this as a rising empire. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna speak up against it. However, I just think that they've outmaneuvered America in so many ways, man. And I just think it's undeniable. And I think that any trader, any person who has liquidity, any person who has assets, and you're an American like myself, if you're not understanding how to get into China, if you're not learning how to diversify right now, you're truly taking a big risk. And it's not about betrayal. It's not about betrayal. That's not what I'm suggesting, because many Americans, the rich Americans, when I look at Elon Musk doing business in China, this is what I was thinking about just yesterday. I think I was like, Elon does business in China. Elon does business in China. But then what? I'm not going to do business in China. Ray Dalio goes and he'll talk, let's say, about China. He's an American. Then what? Then I'm not going to do it. So it's almost like you got the billionaire, trillionaire that does it. It's like they understand intuitively what's going on. So why should an American trader, why should an American investor in the markets not learn how to also just diversify part of the money to understanding, for example, Chinese equities, especially when they're winning?
What you say is shocking to me, because as you can tell, folks, this is not supposed to be rehearsed. We didn't have a script. We're not supposed to go on. If we had rehearsed this, the show is always more interesting when you have an argument, when you have Nima saying, no, America won in Iran. Yeah. America's so great. And Pablo's going, no, they didn't. This is making the Chinese yuan greater and weakening the US dollar. So you get a better show. I'm shocked. I didn't expect coming off Nima didn't have this opinion. Last time we spoke, like he did not have this opinion. And suddenly he's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So look, I'm going to talk about from economics point of view. First of all, do you know why oil prices went up like about 60% higher than before the war, but it didn't go to like crazy high, like $150, $160? Do you know why that didn't happen?
Why?
Okay,
Right.
and I hope folks are paying attention, because if oil prices spike, obviously inflation spikes in the US. Say goodbye to rate cuts. I don't care whichever stooge puppet that Trump puts into the Fed. I don't care. He kind of cut interest rates, and then you got a problem with the stock market. If the stock market goes down, Bitcoin goes down. So I'll explain why. There are two reasons. You know how the United States has something called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, SPR, Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and it's basically, you know what it's kind of like your rainy day fund, your emergency. You know how every family has savings, like you put that $50,000 away, you never touch it unless it's a rainy day fund, right? Same thing for a country. You have a strategic petroleum reserve. That's what Bitcoin was supposed to be. They're supposed to start a strategic Bitcoin reserve. They learned that term, they learned that word from strategic petroleum reserve. And yeah, you've just pulled that up. Now it's saying it hits the lowest level since 1983. And look, I know you got a lot of right wing followers, so I'll be honest and I'll be fair. It's not just Trump. Biden sold a lot of it. Biden sold. You meant to keep it full. You meant to keep it like a jug. It's meant to be full. You only use it when there's a fucking World War III, bro. Where you only use it if there's a tornado, super tornado, once in 100-year tornado that takes out all the oil refineries and all the oil rigs in Cushing, West Texas, in Oklahoma, in Ohio, takes out all the oil rigs and all the oil storage. And then you say, okay, we prepared for this exact scenario. Since 1983, we stored away 700 million barrels, 700 million barrels of oil for the greatness of America. And this started with Biden. Then Trump followed up on it. Biden didn't have any emergency. The only emergency Biden had was that inflation was going up too much, and Biden was like, "Oh, I guess we got to dump the oil reserves." He sold 40% of America's emergency oil reserves just to keep inflation down. That's not an emergency, right? Then Trump, once the war with Iran started, and then says, "Well, we got to keep the inflation down." Then Trump sells the oil reserves as well, just to. Both presidents did it to keep the inflation down. I guess you could say Trump had a little bit more of a reason. Was the situation was kind of called for it. It was a war scenario, but it wasn't a war against the Soviets. The reason why they did this in 1983 was because war with Soviets could happen. You only use it in that situation. You don't use it on a war with Vietnam or with Iran or with Venezuela. And today, the Soviets don't exist anymore. So if you're a hard wing right winger or a hard wing left winger, you would say, oh, look, we would only use that either if we have a World War III scenario with China and Russia at the same time, or we would use the SPR reserves of America if a huge tornado took out West Texas, Cushing, where all our oil storage is. But like right now, US is halfway down, right, on its strategic oil reserves. That's why they kept the oil price down. The other thing comes back to China. You said China won. Like, did you know how much less oil China actually bought in the last 2 months? How much less? Do you know how
How much?
much?
How much?
29%. So
Less.
whilst every other country less, yes. So whilst every other country like Japan, like Turkey, like Australia was scrambling out there saying they sold their gold. Turkey sold their gold. Our last conversation, we were like, oh, how come gold is going down in the war? I was like, hey, unfortunately, folks, countries like Turkey and some other countries are desperate. They're like, I just want to buy oil. How can I buy oil? You can only use US dollars. How can I get US dollars? What do you have, Turkey? What can you export? Not much. Oh, I've got gold. Here's a gold bar. I've got 20 tons of gold bars. Right? Sell 20 tons in 1 week, sell 20 tons next week. Boom. Like 60 tons. I think they sold 60 tons of gold in like 10 days or something. And basically just crashed the gold market, but they bought a lot of oil because the oil price kind of went up like 50-60%, and those countries need that extra money to buy oil. So China doesn't want to pay 50-60-70% more for the same oil. So China basically bought less oil. China bought 9%, almost 1/3 less oil in the last 2 months, which is a shock to me as well, because they're the only ones who have access to Iranian oil. Like if there's one country that Iran can sell oil to, is China, and yet they didn't buy it. China didn't buy it. So that's what happened, and that's what caused oil price to actually stay in the 90s for crude oil in the 90s, and now it's like just dropped below 80 since they're about to sign the peace deal. So it's I wouldn't say it's a like kind of a total victory for China the way you're saying it. Like China's had to make a lot of sacrifices there. They had to use their own strategic reserves or some of their reserves, or they've had to hike prices of petroleum gas at the pump against their citizens. It's gone up more in China than in the US. So it's not in the short term. China suffered because they had to buy less oil and they have less oil for their citizens. So oil price has gone up more in China than it has in the United States. But however, in the long term, I have to agree with you. You make a very good point, dude. Like this is not a good look for the US military. Like literally, do you ever watch the Rose Bowl? You know how there's a Super Bowl, but there's
Yeah,
also
yeah,
a Rose
yeah.
Bowl.
In Pasadena, yeah.
I
I
make
haven't
a
looked at it,
joke
but
in my
yeah, go ahead. I'm familiar.
I make a joke for all the sports fans out there, for all the folks who like sports, who understand sports. I make a joke out in my Discord, and you can get more information of this in my Discord, which Nima and I run. You get interesting analysis like this, and you're never going to get anywhere else. I say, look, the big clash between China and US, or between China-led countries and US-led allies, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, is what people call the Super Bowl of human history. And I said as a joke to my Discord when this Iran thing first happened, I said, well, before the Super Bowl of human history, we're first going to have the Rose Bowl of human history. And the Rose Bowl is not a professional game, as you know, it's a famous college game, right? It's the most famous college game you have before you ever get to the Super Bowl, which is the NFL. It's not even in the NFL, it's in the college NCAA. It's the college games, right? Played between two college teams. What I'm trying to say is that US fighting Iran is kind of like the New England Patriots going and playing against the Ohio State, the Block O, or Caltech, or Georgia Tech, somebody like that. It's basically like should be a walkover. Everybody expected a walkover. Everybody, it's like Russia against Ukraine. When US goes against Iran, it should be just a walkover. But in both cases, not just US but also Russia, the superpowers, the super militaries, kind of just couldn't finish it off. I'm like, well, like if you can't finish the Rose Bowl and win decisively, if you have to keep on going, hey, I think we should have peace talks. I think we should have peace talks. If you keep on doing that, what are you going to do in the Super Bowl, man? And by the last thing I'm going to say about is this. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. This is good news for everybody. The good news is we might now not have a Super Bowl. China and US may never go head to head again because they don't like wars. They haven't had a war for 43 years. The very last war was somewhere against Vietnam. That was 43 years ago. No wars for 43 years. We all know US loves to have a war or two or three simultaneously every year. This has happened, dude, since 250 years. US has been since founding, right? Since George Washington was sworn in as president, 250 years. In those 250 years, do you know how many years US hasn't had a war?
How many? How many?
16.
16 out of 250.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 250. That I understand now US is a superpower. It's kind of like, I don't care. I need to feed the military industrial complex. I can have a war every year. I can have a war every year. I don't care. But before, like, do you remember Canada came in and burned the White House? That's why it's called the White House, because it was burned charcoal black. You had to whitewash and paint over it to paint over the black smoke, the black burns. That was Canada. It couldn't even be Canada. I think it was 1812, the War of 1812. It was so weak back then, but it still had a war every year, except for 16 years, US wasn't involved in a war. So what I'm trying to say is, if US feels like, okay, well, that took a lot of out of us, even just playing the Rose Bowl, now are we sure right away we want to go into playing in the Super Bowl against the guy who's the number one manufacturing power in the world? And that's why I feel hopeful once again that we won't get a Super Bowl situation, because that will be the end of humanity, man. You don't want to see those two countries ever in the Super Bowl or in a war together, right? Like famously, US did not join in the Ukraine war against Russia, because both sides have lots of nukes. Like all the European countries that don't have nukes says, "Oh, we got to support Ukraine. We got to support Ukraine." But US is like, okay, I'm out of it. I'm out of it. All I have to do is give Ukraine some money. I support them with the money. I'll support Taiwan with money, but I'm never going to fight this war, not against Russia. Hopefully now we don't have a fucking war. Like US can fight its war against some small country. Russia can fight its war against some small country like Ukraine. China can maybe take over Taiwan, but I do not want to see those three countries ever, however you want to, whatever combination or permutation of them three going at each other. That's the end of humanity for all of us. And as a side note, I just think that's a good thing that now US is kind of like had a draw, if you want to call it a draw, in the Rose Bowl. So maybe, hey, that's not think about playing in the Super Bowl. China hasn't had a war in 43 years. It's not itching to start a war. So that's everybody. Just chill down, just calm down, sit back, and just have a normal economic, have a tech war in semiconductors, in AI, an economic war with tariff wars, with in exports, imports, have a, I don't know, have a like a biological war, spread COVID or whatever, but don't fucking start what they call a kinetic war. Military calls that a kinetic war when things actually go hot, when they actually start firing guns at each other. Don't do that, right? Humanity, yeah. Good news for humanity.
So here's the thing. So if Trump, the United States, they clearly struggled. They clearly had a challenge to get a decisive outcome against Iran. I mean, also it's just a very unpopular war. So I could imagine that Trump had a lot of political pressure, and I think that the Chinese and the Iranians and the Russians, they just completely understood that. Qatar understood that. They understood they just had to drag this out, and that this was a very unpopular war. And I think Trump overplayed his hand. But now that said, it's an embarrassment for America. It's perhaps the peak of American power and prestige and influence. Unfortunately, I say that as an American who supported Trump. But I do feel abandoned that he did that to the Iranian people. And then now they're talking about giving a ton of money to Trump. But anyway, here's my question to you is that since there's this decisive outcome against Iran, what does that tell you? How markets will price a future U.S.-China confrontation? Would you say it's China is stronger than many traders in the West realize, or do you think that the markets are overreacting and that America still dominates completely?
I'm very shocked that you're saying what you're saying, because even our last talk we had, you didn't have this opinion. Like, I'm very shocked. Like, from what I can see, you're a very right wing commentator. It's all about Trump, MAGA, pro America, and you're saying words that I would never use. I make a video every day. I speak to my Discord every day. Some guys in my Discord are probably watching this, or will be watching this right now. And you've never heard me say the word embarrassment for America, because I know people get triggered. I never use those words. And like, are your followers, are they supportive of this war, or do they want just to end as well? I'm very shocked this is happening. You're saying what you're saying.
Yeah, I have a bias. Because I'm Iranian American, and I do want to free Iran with free elections. So I do feel I feel defeated. I think personally it's because I just feel defeated. I feel like I truly believe that China won, and I didn't know that would happen, and I didn't think Trump would abandon. And I just think that we underestimated. I think Israel and the United States underestimated what China and Russia could do. I think Israel underestimated American support for this war, and I think Trump underestimated how far the Chinese would go, because I just don't think this would have happened if it was just Iran. And I think China was completely committed. I think China was saying, we're going to fight this. We're not going to let you destroy Iran. And I think now the most important thing to do, and I'm just saying this apolitical, by the way, like, what I'm about to say, and that's as a person who has who has assets. For anyone who has assets, what the heck are we about to do coming up with the money that we have? How do we plan for the retirement? If you are going to take a retirement, I'm never going to, but I'm just saying, like, what should we be looking at? What can we trade? What are the windows? What's coming up for us into looking at these financial markets? What's next? What's coming, rather?
Okay.
That's what I'm curious about, man.
That's
Honestly.
a very good question. That's a very good question. I'm going to answer that in terms of the short term, medium term, and long term
Please.
outcome of this war, because this is actually very, very consequential. First of all, you can tell we never scripted this, because Nima is supposed to argue with me to make this look interesting by saying, no, America won and all that. And I'm like sitting here shocked, saying he's taking my lines. He's saying it worse than I'm saying it. Like, I've never used words like embarrassment. I would never use words like embarrassment. I've never used that word ever in the Discord when it comes to America in any situation. And like it's because I know we have like a lot of American members, and they will be triggered. Like, I'm very surprised you're saying what I was trying to say, but going even further, like, but this is okay. Your sentiment is right in that this is a very, very consequential outcome and very consequential war. Let me just tell you, short term, medium term, and long term, what's going to happen. Because, boy, it's like, in the short term, when it comes to inflation and oil, I think it's gonna, right now, oil's gone from $100 something a month ago to crude oil per barrel to about $90 2 weeks ago, then it hovered around 80 in the last week, as the rumors of this negotiation was coming out, and today it's crashed just below to about 78, 77. Most people are calling for a crashing oil right now. I'm not in that camp. I think oil at 70 something is bottom. I think it's never going back to that $60 area where it was before the war. The reason is because of this. Once you let's say this is a oil well, they bombed, and they, both sides, Iranians and the Gulf Middle Eastern country, they bombed each other's oil and gas wells. Just because you open up the Hormuz Strait, that oil facility, once you bomb it, it takes like 2 years to rebuild it. Second of all, even if you didn't bomb that oil infrastructure, what happens is this: the oil, right? Say this is the oil infrastructure. There's oil underneath in the earth, and there's so much pressure, it pushes the oil out, and it gushers out, right? You just have to capture it in a pipe and deliver it. But if you if you close the valve so the oil can't get out, right? Can't get out, you keep it in there, then the oil builds up, the pressure builds up, builds up, builds up. After about, I think, 2.5 months, it starts happening. 2.5 months or 3.5 months of oil buildup, the pressure becomes so much, it collapses back in. It collapses back into the ground. So then, even when you lift 3-4 months later, you open the lid again, right? That oil basically just, it doesn't come out anymore, or it comes out at half the rate it did before. So even if it's fully back operational, every oil well in the Middle East, some of them are only going to be at 50% capacity, right? And the oil will just, it's just been pushed back down for some of the oil wells. Plus, as I said, the US SPR reserve. US SPR reserve is basically half drained. So US, if the president does anything responsible at all, it'll have to buy 350 million barrels of oil back from the market to refill what's empty. What Trump and Biden emptied, Trump's going to have to buy it back now from the market. So now you've got less supply than before. That problem doesn't get fixed until for about a year, 2 years out from now. And you've got more demand from before, because not just US, Europe, Australia, Canada, maybe not Canada, China, every country, Japan, Korea, certainly, every big country in the world and small country, Philippines, India, have run low on their oil reserves. They all now need to not just buy for everyday usage for their cars and electricity, they also need to buy to refuel their strategic reserves. No one wants to leave that empty again. So imagine more buying pressure and less supply than before. That's gonna. I don't think this is the end of oil. So I think that's going to push oil prices back up again. What does that mean for Bitcoin and stock market? It means inflation will look like it's going down for the next 1 or 2 months. But once oil makes a U-turn or a V-turn, could be a V-turn or a U-turn, and comes back up again by the end of this year, like say September, maybe earlier than that, August, September, October, then basically inflation is going to be a problem. It's going to put lots of pressure on Kevin Warsh, who is doing his first Fed meeting tomorrow. What's going to happen? Like he can't cut rates much anymore. Like that that's not good for the markets, right? If he cuts rates, stocks take off. Bitcoin should have a big bounce. His hands are tied if inflation is high. Inflation will come back because, as I'm saying, oil price shouldn't go down to $60 something. Oil price probably bounces back.
If oil never returns to the $60 range though, and instead it stays around $75, $100, what asset class would you say benefits the most? Energy stocks, commodities, Bitcoin, or something else?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good question. Energy stocks certainly would benefit. But as we know, energy stocks, they're huge. Like if ExxonMobil makes 15% in a year, people applaud that and says, yeah, I'm up 15% on ExxonMobil. But that's because ExxonMobil will still pay out like a 3% dividend. So you're getting paid like 3% dividend, which is the same thing as putting money into a bank. You're getting paid an yield. And then unlike a bank, which hands you your money back, this ExxonMobil actually hands 15% extra back to you. So Warren Buffett loves these sort of oil stocks. From memory, he bought Occidental, which is an American oil company. The symbol is OXY. He's held that for a number of years, and I've been telling my folks in our Discord, to get into that as well. So check out our Discord if you want, because we've been talking about that for 2 years. And on top of that, I think Warren Buffett, just before the war began, also bought into one of the big two. It's either ExxonMobil or Chevron. He bought, I think it was Chevron. He bought that as well just before the war. But what's more profitable, what's more going to be life changing, I think it's gold and silver. Um, are you able to do a search
Yeah.
on gold and silver chart, historical chart in the 1970s? Do you have trading view? If you don't have trading view, that's okay, just do a Google search.
Okay.
Usually I would be the one hosting these chats, so I could show you guys on the laptop. But here's the thing. So in the 70s, it was, again, it's exact same story. It's almost like we're in a replay of the 70s right now. Guess what happened in the 70s? Basically, you had in the 1970s, you had a few oil shocks. It was Israel that had the 6 Day War with like about 8 or 9 Muslim countries around Israel. And that happened like 2 or 3 times. And because US supported Israel, like it is doing right now, so all the oil countries got very angry with it. And so they led by Saudi Arabia, oil countries went into what they call oil embargo. Oil embargo, meaning like they're not going to export oil to the US. So US had to rely on its own oil. In oil price in the United States shot up 4x. Oil price went up 4 times. Can you believe that? In like 2 years or 1.5 years or 1 year, whatever. And then after that, inflation shot up to something like 15%. Like it was like 9% or 15% in the US inflation. Can you believe that? When oil went so high, and it lasted like that oil crisis lasted like a decade, because by 77, 78, Iran and Iraq went to war. Yeah, believe it or not, Iran actually had a war with Saddam Hussein. And back then, United States fully backed Saddam Hussein. Yes, the world is that crazy. So so basically,
A lot of Iranians
so
died in that, man.
basically,
A lot of Iranians died in that. Yeah.
oh yeah, they used some kind of gas, some kind of mustard gas or something.
Yeah.
If I'm if
Yeah.
I'm if I'm familiar with that history,
Yeah. But you were, yeah,
I'm sorry to be
yeah.
yeah, I'm
Go
sorry
ahead.
to
Go
be
ahead.
laughing about it, but
No,
I
I
just find it
understand.
ridiculous that you once back Iraq, and then you take out against Iran, then you take out Saddam Hussein, right? And you say mission accomplished, and then you take on Iran. It's just like it's crazy. Like I was saying at the start of this video, America loves its wars, so it's not a bad thing if it didn't win decisively in Iran. Maybe we won't get a world war after this. Certainly not between U.S., Russia, and China. That's a good thing for humanity. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
so. Look, what I'm trying to say is back then, Iran, in that decade. 1973 was Israel against the 8 or 9 Muslim countries. Oil embargo, U.S. oil prices shot right up, and then in 78, 77, 79, oil shock from Iraq, Iran war, another oil shock. So oil prices shot up a lot. Inflation shot up a lot. Oil price went up 4x. Imagine oil price at the pump. Imagine it was like $3. Like 3 months ago, and by Christmas it goes to $12. Can you imagine that? That's what happened in the 1970s. They call that stagflation. The much beloved U.S. President Carter, what's his name? It's something Carter. It's is it
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter? Yes, you're right. Jimmy
Mhm.
Carter. He was loved by his people, but he went down because of such high oil prices. Now, in that decade, would you believe it or not? If you, can you find the price of gold
Yeah.
in that era, in 1970s? Just go on, see if you can go on Trading View. Just or Google gold price
Right.
historical chart.
Okay.
Yeah, just I think you can just Google it. Google gold price historical chart. And I think we're gonna. I think a lot of people who follow me, who are in my Discord, already knows what happened in 1970s gold price. But I think, yeah, 100-year historical chart. There we go. Yeah, down the bottom. So we can just have a look at the 70s. Okay, there you go. What's the gold price at the start of 1970? Okay, you got the
That's
price at the end, which is
1979 too,
800.
bro. That's 1979, right around the Iranian Revolution.
Yeah, how much is it? 850.
In
Is it?
1979, it got all the way up to, wow, it got up to about it got up to $417. So this is right around the Islam. This
What's
is right
what's
around this is right around the revolution, man. To your point. Wow.
what's the high there? What's the high that shows on your chart?
The
The
high
high
is February 1980,
six
$140.
640, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the at the bottom at the start of 1970?
In 1970 it was $35.
Yes. Yeah, $35. So that's about a 20x run. Now, actually, in the month where it peaked, because this is a line chart, so it doesn't actually show the actual peak. The actual peak was like about $860. So it went from like $30, 32, $35, all the way to 800 something dollars. Gold. Something as boring as gold ran up like 24x. Now, silver had a 33x run. So gold had a 24x run and silver had a 33x run in 9 years. In 9 years. That's like saying from now, from well, obviously the gold run didn't start now, but that's use gold as an example. For example, gold bottomed in 2015. In 2015 at around 1,050. That call it 1,000 even. If if gold has a 24x run, it goes to 24,000, right? 1050 times 24 is just over $25,000. And it's 4,300 today. So imagine gold goes to $25,000. It's crazy. So like that's the kind of run they had. Oh, in 9 years. So that'll be 2034. Yeah, imagine 2015, sorry, 2024. Between 2015, gold bottoms at 1,050. By 2024, which is 9 years later, right? Gold price went to $25,000. We're in 2026 now. So like that's how crazy the situation was once bad inflation hit. So gold and silver can run really hard. Initially, it might actually go down because there's always a short-term effect and a long-term effect. The short-term effect is that gold goes down in the short term because the high inflation means high interest rates. High interest rates, some people sell their gold. But if inflation doesn't stop and it runs for like a few years, then people are like, oh my God, I don't trust the US dollar anymore. Then what's an alternative to the US dollar? Nothing. No
Well,
currency is an alternative to the US dollar except gold.
so what would you? So two questions. What would outperform if stagflation returns, and then what's your inflation hedge right now? Like
If,
what's your
yeah,
inflation
right
hedge
now,
right now? Yeah. And then second question, what outperforms if stagflation returns for a trader? What should we be looking at?
right now I hold a lot of gold and silver, but I wouldn't call them necessarily an inflation hedge because you're gonna run into sometime, like say for 4, 5, 6 months, even a year, right? 12 months in a row, you see inflation being high. If you see inflation's like 8%, 9%, and you're screaming, why hasn't gold moved? Gold didn't actually move. Gold actually went down. That's because when inflation goes up in the short term, like in 2022, what happens is the Federal Reserve hikes interest rates. And when the Federal Reserve hikes interest rates, you know that if you park your US dollars in a bank, you're going to get 4%, 5%, 5.5% interest just by sitting there. You buy gold, that gold sits there and it doesn't do anything. It's just a hunk of metal sitting in your vault or in your garage. So you're like, I'd rather be paid 5.5%. So you get into US dollars. But as that chart you just pointed out, that's on screen right now, showed you, in a time of rampant stagflation, when stagflation was really serious, when when things were really bad, started questioning if US dollar was going to survive or not. That happened in the 70s. Then gold went on a 25x run, and silver went on a 33x run. So the short answer is depends on how bad inflation gets. If we have a normal inflation like what you had in the last 10, 20 years, like inflation goes to 3, 4% and Fed hikes rates and brings inflation back down, then yeah, I can see gold having a pullback. Gold actually probably doesn't go up, it pulls back. But if you're talking about 1970s style bad stagflation, like yourself, someone who's very right wing, who voted for Trump, who's like passionate about Trump, MAGA, and America. Even you are saying this is embarrassing. This is like a loss. China's winning. Whatever, whatever. I don't even say shit like that in my Discord. I don't even see that in the public. Full stop. Right. If more and more people are starting to doubt that, then people are like, I don't even know US dollar can still remain strong and remain the reserve currency of the world over the next 5, 10 years. Then yes, gold and silver absolutely takes off, absolutely has like a 5x run, 10x run, 20x run, right? That so there's a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like there's like wishful thinking about what you think, what you think you want, like what you think could happen, and then there's like what you want to happen, and then sort of divorcing what you want and what you think will happen. And I think that my my view on this is just has evolved, and I think to not take that new information and have a new thinking and adjust and adapt, I think it's a very big mistake for anyone who is either trading the markets or has, assets, and they're a provider for their family. I mean, guys, if you're not diversifying into other markets and you're just putting so much into the American equities, that is to me the most high risk. When Elon Musk is doing business in China, Elon Musk is doing business in China, literally. So he can go make billions of
His
dollars and
his
we can't.
biggest business is in China.
There you go.
His biggest business is in China.
There you go. So
So
what?
yeah, I think that's you're giving out a very good warning, because here's the thing. There's a joke, right? There's a joke that says if you make $50,000 a year, you hate China because it's evil. You make $500,000 a year, you are trying to export to China. You make $5 million a year, you're trying to learn Mandarin. You make $5 billion a year, your kids are learning Mandarin. Which
Wow.
is true, because Elon Musk, Trump. Do you want to Google right now Trump granddaughter singing in Mandarin? Like they literally had her sing in Mandarin, and it was a very communist song. Like I know you guys hate communism. She literally sang one of the anthems to communism. The song was literally sang. Do you know Xi's wife, Xi Jinping's wife, is a famous folk singer. She's a famous what they call folk song artist in China. This song she made famous. It was literally about praising how green the fields are, how wonderful our communist country is. Those were literally the words. And if you Google it, Trump's granddaughter sings it. You can probably play people a clip. This did not happen like this year, right now. Like when you say, "Oh, U.S. they showed weakness in Iran," this happened during Trump's first presidency. This happened in 2017, and you wonder, "Oh, how does Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner's daughter learn to speak Mandarin 8 years ago?" Well, because 8 years ago, when Trump was starting a war with China, he realized China is kind of like the future. Like as much as United States is also the future, it may not have just one future. Like the Soviets and U.S. dominated the world for 45, 50 years together, for like 45 years together. Like they were both together running the world. You may not have just one country dominate. I know you guys are used to it because you guys are young and you've only seen the last 30 years when US was the sole superpower. But remember, like back then, remember the Soviets and US were strong at the same time. And before that, Britain and the United States were both strong at the same time. There was no clear winner. So literally, like Elon Musk, his son is, you know how they got all the big businessmen, like every major CEO who was somebody. Like you need Larry Fink, Jason Huang, Elon Musk. They all went to China. Like what is it, 4 weeks ago, right? To try to sign deals, and Boeing, with Intel, all the CEO and founders went. Elon Musk took his son to China, got him to dress in a Chinese costume, carrying this little Chinese traditional bag, and those photos went viral. You think that's by accident? Do you like imagine if Trump went to Iran to have a meeting with the Ayatollah and got Byron Trump to dress in a traditional Muslim costume with a little Muslim hat or a Muslim bag, whatever, and those photos go viral. Do you think that happens by accident? That's what Elon Musk did. You can Google those photos, right? So billionaires are getting their kids to learn Mandarin, and yet a lot of folks who are making 50,000, who are in the 50,000 category, not in the 5 billion, not in the 5 million, not even the 500,000, but they're in the 50,000 category. They're like, "Oh, China's the enemy. That China's evil." And yeah, well, dude, like Elon Musk, like Trump's kids, I can. Oh, Mark Zuckerberg's kids, all of them are learning Mandarin. You just have to Google it. Like it's simple. You just have to Google it. So what I'm trying to say is basically over the next 6 months, I want folks to be especially careful because it's going to be very difficult to invest in anything else, anything but U.S. stocks. There you go. There you can click on any of one of those photos. He's wearing that traditional Chinese vest with the little Chinese embroidered bag, right? If you want
Wow.
to click on any
Well,
of them and enlarge the photo.
bro, I never knew that Elon Musk, I never knew that Elon Musk was in China and his son was wearing Chinese attire. And this has just happened with the Trump trip. And here we are,
Do
many
you want to
Americans
click on
thinking, yeah, I clicked on, I don't know why I didn't hear. Let me take it away. I'll come right back to it. But
any of the photos? Like
yeah, yeah,
make it bigger so folks can see it better.
yeah,
It went
yeah.
viral. Do you,
No,
you think that's by accident?
I did.
You
It
think
didn't.
Elon Musk walks like holds his son's hand? You think he's thinking no one's gonna take any photos where no cameraman's ever gonna film this? Really? You're in the Trump Xi summit meeting. You take your son and he's wearing that. Do you think he chose that? Oh, I'm gonna randomly just choose something for my son to wear this morning. This Chinese vest and this Chinese bag look pretty good. Both traditional costumes look pretty good and went freaking viral. You think that happened by accident? Really? Like what Nemo was saying was absolutely correct in that it's not Elon does business in China. His business is China. He makes EVs. 50% of all EVs from Tesla are manufactured in one place, Shanghai, Gigafactory. You might say, oh, there's a Gigafactory in Texas. There's a Gigafactory. They're trying to build it in Germany. Yeah, you add all of that up together, still not as big as the one in Shanghai. China has the largest EV market in the world. More than half of his EV cars are sold in China. It's his largest supplier and his largest buyer. Right? Like, do you, any of you guys own a business? Imagine if you say that guy, he's my largest supplier and my largest buyer. Then he matters to you more than your mom and your dad right now. That's so anyway.
I mean, I never,
The point
bro, as an American, I like Elon Musk. I just want to say, no disrespect to Elon Musk. Elon, I like you. I never knew that you were just in China. Your son was dressed in Chinese. But I mean, hey, man, I guess if they're your biggest supplier, your biggest buyer in his business, and all I'm saying is, as a guy who has a lot less money than Elon, if Elon can do business with China and build America, why can more middle class Americans, upper middle class Americans, affluent Americans, working class Americans, why can't all of us also do business with these people? He's doing it. And in fact, not only is Elon Musk doing it, he's there with Trump. And Trump took a bunch of American businessmen there. I mean, that's like, it's almost we're getting, some indoctrination propaganda in America, and then what the billionaires are doing is something completely else. It's almost like the American billionaires, they're ready for it, but the middle class aren't. It's crazy.
Do you want to Google and do a search for all the CEOs that went with Trump to China? It's literally everybody, the who's who of American business. Like every large major company, from Apple to Intel to the Boeing to Tesla to SpaceX, everything you could think of, to BlackRock, everything you can think of, to Citibank, to MasterCard, Visa, anyone you can think of. Like, so what I'm trying to say is the next few months it's going to be hard, even though it's good to diversify and invest in everything else. Not just to be tunnel vision and say US stocks only, which is what we do in our Discord, and we show folks gold, silver, Bitcoin, the mining sector, and Australian stocks, Canadian stocks, and China, Hong Kong stocks. We do that. Although I have to warn the folks who are watching this, over the next 6 months, the temptation is going to be huge. Yeah, look at that list. Look at that list. Look how crazy that list looks, right? Those guys, how do you ever get all of them to take a 12-hour flight? All these guys at the same time have to put down everything. Your son's soccer game, you're going to your Illuminati meeting. Put all of that aside for 3 days and fly to China. All of them coordinated. That's how big the business is. And some folks are like, "Oh, dude, China's evil. I can't do business with China," right? It's like, yeah, but all these multi-billionaires and trillionaires are going. The world's only trillionaire dressed up his son in Chinese traditional attire, and the U.S. MAGA president basically goes, "Oh, okay, well, let's get my granddaughter to learn Mandarin," and that happened 8 years ago. 8 years ago.
Okay, so Pablo, we have a question, guys. I welcome questions.
Yeah.
If you guys, we're streaming on more than one app, so more than one website. So if you guys have any questions, please, go ahead and ask. Or Pablo, you good? We do about another 5 more minutes.
Okay, sure. How do you think the inflation spike when it comes will affect China tech or chip stocks?
Yeah, hold on. So here's
a couple of words.
Yeah, here's a question from Colasus. He says, "How do you think the inflation spike, when it comes, would affect the Chinese tech chip stocks? And if you could, a couple of words on the Chinese stocks overall."
Okay, so basically, China and the US are actually in the exact opposite situation. This wasn't intentional. Like, basically, everything used to run on the American clock. Everything basically moved with America before. There is a famous saying, I'm sure you guys have heard it before, which is, when America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold, right? So basically, when US cuts interest rates, everything else flies in emerging markets. Brazil, Vietnam, China stocks go boom, right? But when US hikes rates, everything crashes in US, not just in US, but crashes more in China, in Korea, in Vietnam, in Brazil, in Singapore, in all these countries. Now, the thing is, because US and China have tried to, mainly US, when Trump came on, his famous policies, we need to decouple from China. So therefore, and there's a trade war with high tariffs. So therefore, China is not able to export that much into the US anymore. See, Chinese export into the US has dropped and dropped every year. So basically, then what happens is China's not doing well in terms for its consumers. It's doing very well in terms of tech industry, like AI, EVs, semiconductors, drones. What else? Drones, solar, all those high tech industries, biomedicine, biomedical field. It's doing really well, right? It's incredible. It's catching up to the US on a lot of those. But when it comes to consumer spending, China's not doing well because they can't export very much. A lot of people, they just don't have a lot of money to spend right now. So what happens is this: China, believe it or not, was actually spent the last 3 years in mild deflation. Yes, I know it sounds strange. US is actually in inflation. Like US inflation rate got up to 9.2% in 2022. That was its peak. Now it's coming back down to about 2.83%, depends on which PCE, core PCE, monthly, yearly, whichever measure you look at. But it's still having problem getting down to 2.5 and below. China, on the other hand, is like below zero. It's like negative 0.5%, negative minus 0.8%. It's in deflation. So if there was inflation and China imports oil from the US, China imports soybeans, China imports a lot of farm products from the farmers of US, China imports those NVIDIA chips from US, which are made in Taiwan. If those prices went up and rose and forced Chinese inflation to go from deflation to mild inflation, they would actually be really happy. They would be like, wow, finally we have a little bit of inflation. What's bad is deflation. Like, I know a lot of Bitcoiners, a lot of folks who follow me are actually into Bitcoin. They're like, oh, Bitcoin's it's very little inflation, or they say things like, because of the burn of Ethereum, Ethereum is now in deflation because of the burning, right? Of Ethereum. That's actually not a good thing for the economy. It's good for Ethereum holders, but it's not a good thing for the economy of anybody. So they would actually welcome that. But that's the short to medium term effect. After 3 months, after 6 months, if this Kevin Warsh guy been a stooge, been a puppet of Trump, if he decides to hike rates or stops cutting rates, then basically the market panics. The market panics and says, "Well, no more liquidity coming in." If U.S. markets crashes, then what happens is everything else goes down as well, including gold but to a lesser extent. When it comes to China stocks, there would be China stocks inside China, and there will be China stocks in Hong Kong. Now, you can't buy any China stocks. Most of us can't inside China because it's walled off. It's walled off because it's like you just can't exchange Chinese yuan. You can't go in and just buy those stocks. You're not a citizen. So therefore, it'll impact the stocks inside China less because there's a firewall. There's a great wall in terms of currency exchange. But Hong Kong, anyone can buy and sell. So those stocks will get sold off. In theory, probably as much as the US stocks. But the problem is this: Hong Kong stocks are kind of down right now, right? They've shot up a lot, like 2x, 3x, 4x run, and they made a big pullback. So they're not that far off their base bottom. If there was a big crash in the US, yeah, US stocks could spend the next 2-3 years going down like this. Hong Kong stocks go down, but I think go down less. And then it would get to a ridiculous level, and long-term buyers like Warren Buffett, not himself particularly, but other value investors like myself and the value investors in Asia would come in and buy it and support the price. So I hope that answers the question. But since now we've got the Federal Reserve meeting happening tomorrow, would you Nima, like me to spend a few minutes predicting what's going to happen with the Federal Reserve tomorrow?
Yeah, yeah. Your closing thoughts and finish this off. However, yeah. This is a perfect. Let's do it.
So first of all, because you're a political guy, I want to ask you: do you see Kevin Warsh as as a stooge, a puppet, or do you guys see this is an independent Fed, just like Joey Powell?
I don't know. I'm not that familiar with him like you are. I'll be honest with you, man. I haven't studied him
Okay,
that
do you
much.
know?
Yeah.
Okay, the new Fed the
I know,
new
I,
Fed
I know, I know,
what's
I
his
know,
name?
I know you're very familiar with him. So I would love to know what you think.
Kevin Warsh, the new Fed president.
Yeah.
Do you know who his father-in-law is?
Who?
His father-in-law.
Who's
He's
that?
the owner of Estee Lauder.
Wow. Billionaire.
Yeah, you know Estee Lauder, that makeup brand, right?
Yeah. Billionaire.
So Estee Lauder is the mom's name. She's actually Jewish. You can probably tell. That's a I think that's a Hebrew name, Estee Lauder.
Mm.
So when it passed on to him, his name is Ronald Lauder.
So he's related to
And
Ronald.
yeah, and
He's related to Ronald
son-in-law,
Lauder.
son-in-law.
Wow.
His daughter married Kevin Warsh 20 years ago.
Wow.
And okay, next question is, how is Ronald Lauder related to Trump?
Yeah. How?
They went to Wharton together.
Wow.
You know the movie, like what was it called, Animal House, with James Belushi. What's his name?
Yeah.
James Belushi. That's it. Yeah. Animal House. That's what Trump and Ronald Lauder was doing. That movie was modeled after frat guys like Trump and Ronald Lauder, except they went to Wharton. They went to UPenn, and then when they graduated, they went to Wharton Business School, and they're basically like, they're the best buddies for 50 years. Like the relationship we think Trump and Epstein had, well, that ended pretty quickly. Trump publicly denounced him like 2006, 2005, or whatever. They had a fallout, but he never had a fallout with Ronald Lauder. Now, you look at all the times that Trump has said, "I'm going to fire this Jerome Powell guy." Told him to cut interest rates. You should have U.S. interest rates should be at 2% right now. Told him to cut interest rates. I nominated him. He doesn't listen, and people are like, "He's not supposed to listen, buddy. I know. We know you nominated him. He's supposed to stay independent because he's the chairman of the Federal Reserve, right? If chairman of the Federal Reserve is supposed to be independent, not supposed to listen to the president. That's the whole fucking point. Like, why do you like? So Trump has learned from that lesson. Then he goes to his best friend, billionaire, in nepo baby inheritor of Estee Lauder, and says, "What can I do, man?" And his best buddy since Animal House, since college frat boy days, Animal House says to him, "Well, how about you use my son-in-law? Like, he used to work at the Fed. He's never been a Fed regional chairman, but you can just nominate him, and trust me, he will do what you say." You can just see that conversation. Of all the people who he could have picked, he picked that guy. Um, by the way, the Ronald Lauder, if you Google him on Wikipedia right now, what's the first, other than being the owner of Estee Lauder, what's the other job that he has? It's pretty famous as well. You probably should know this. Ronald Lauder. Google Wikipedia. If you want to bring up the Wikipedia page of Ronald Lauder right now,
I'm about to pull it up.
he's got two jobs. One, he runs Estee Lauder because his mom left it to him. Two, okay, right there, below his photo. Read that out to me. See his photo? Read that out to me. President of what?
World Jewish Congress.
Yeah. So he's got two jobs. One is billionaire founder of Estee Lauder. Two is president of World Jewish Congress. Who was the previous guy before him? Can we click on World Jewish Congress? See the president before him. Like, Kevin Warsh is president of Federal Reserve, and he's taken over from Jerome Powell, which you all know. Jerome Powell was before him. Who was the guy before Ronald Lauder? I remember, was a famous guy as well. Did they let you click back and forward to see who it was? Who was
Yeah,
last president?
I'll look it up.
That
But it was
does it
started by
say?
Rothschild. It was started by Rothschild.
Was it? Oh, okay. Well, you know better than me. You
Well,
you
the key
probably know this
people,
better
no,
than me.
the key people is David D. Rothschild. He's the chairman of the
Right.
governing board.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
it gets crazy. Like, right. It doesn't. You don't have to. I'm not talking about any conspiracy theories. Like, it just gets crazy. So that guy who's best friends with Trump, right? And he's got two jobs. Both two jobs are very interesting. His son-in-law is now running the Federal Reserve, and you're about to tell me, yeah, this guy's going to be independent. He's going to run a very independent Fed, which is independent policy, nothing to do with the U.S. government. It doesn't matter what Trump says. He's going to run the Fed. He's going to hike rates, be hawkish, manage inflation as he sees fit. Are
Yeah,
you kidding me? So
yeah.
here's my prediction.
That was the guy. Edgar
24
Brofman
hours
was the president of the World Jewish Congress immediately prior
before
to
him.
Ronald
Okay.
S. Lauder. Yeah. From
Okay.
1979 until he stepped down in 2017. I actually went to Israel, believe it or not, because of the Brofman family. They started a Birthright Israel. I went to Israel when I was around 21 years old. Yeah. But listen, man,
Okay.
hey, Paul, Pablo, just so you know, and the people in like China know, not all Jews are privy to this, bro. Like this is like you have like an elite club of Jews. I'm not in that club. I don't get in that country club. I don't know what the heck they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, like I'm a Middle Eastern Jew. I'm not even a European Ashkenazi Jew. Like I'm like the furthest thing maybe away from that club. You know what I'm saying? So just
when you add one more zero to your net worth,
yeah,
you'll be in
man.
that club. I'm sure. Sure somebody's gonna make a phone call and say, "Hey, we got a party on this island next to Albania. You
Oh,
want to come for a
man.
party?"
Yeah,
So, look,
man.
all jokes aside,
Yeah.
like it's just
And
too much
one more
coincidence for
thing,
me to say.
Pablo, one more thing I want you to know
Yeah.
too, though, brother, because I want Chinese people to know this too, is that, you know, Judaism existed prior to Zionism. So you can have the Jewish
Yeah.
faith, learn Torah, pray to God, have a rabbi wrap tefillin, observe Shabbat, do Jewish charity, and also have a political disagreement with political Zionism. That's why I just want you to know that, Pablo, that just because what a handful of Jews do, that does not represent what all Jewish people think. That a government, these people that do politics doesn't define all Jewish people. I just want you to know that, you know.
I totally get what you're saying. It's kind of like the people who say,
You have a Jewish friend,
Chinese.
Brian. You know, I'm not the only. I mean, you and I have been in business for 5 years, but you know what I'm saying. Like
all the guys who I work with are Jewish. You,
Yeah.
Brian, and my agent, my agent, all of the guys. I was just saying to Jenny today. I said, "Oh, I just realized all three guys I work with are Jewish. Right? They're just smart business people. So I don't make a point of saying, oh yeah, I gotta pick a Jewish partner. Like they just happen to be smart business people. Like it's kind of like people say, oh, Chinese equals CCP. That's not necessarily true. Like the top guys in CPP who make the decisions, whether you like or dislike those decisions, whether you like or dislike them, probably seven guys, literally seven guys, and they probably have like that's 18, and they probably have reserves. You know how it's kind of like the New York Knicks would have guys on the bench. There's probably another 15 guys on the bench. All up, there's like 22 guys, right? That makes those decisions. Probably really only those seven. Like it's like the same thing like what you say with Zionism and Judaism. Like people who believe that it's a little bit like saying, oh, people in Iran equals the
Yes.
IRGC or the Ayatollah.
Yeah.
Like the
Or
IRGC is probably
or even China. Not everybody
right.
in the China, like the governments and aren't us. You know what I'm saying? Like you and me, you know, or Australia or America.
It's like if you're like say if you're American or you're British and you go traveling, and then somebody spit on you and they say, "Oh, we don't like Trump," or "We don't like Keir Starmer," and you say, I don't even like Keir Starmer. I didn't vote for Keir Starmer. Well, you could say, okay, I maybe voted for Trump, but I didn't vote for the Iran war. I voted for him to release the Epstein files. I didn't vote for the UFO files. He's doing everything I ask him. We voters told him not to do, and he's maybe doing 10% of the things that he's promised. So look, that's we can all get over that. Like,
Yeah.
people who are like, here's the thing. Like when this war started in Iran, only then did I realize how divided and splintered the Middle Eastern slash Muslim community is. I thought, oh, okay, well, everyone would want to rally around Iran, right? Because it's one religion versus another. No, everyone was like, oh no, we are Shiite Muslims. They are what do you call it? What's the other one?
Sunni.
Shiite Muslim and Sunni.
Sunni.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
they're Sunni Muslims. So I'm like, what? Like you guys put that above? You're one religion, but you put that above everything else. You're like enemies of each other. Oh, they go, yeah, the wars go back many years. What you look at Iraq and Iran, and why Iraq and Iran? Why Saddam Hussein and the Ayatollah Khomeini, not Khamenei, but Khomeini were fighting each other. They go because so the world is a lot more complicated. Like just because the people at the top, a few guys at the top do this, it doesn't mean that they represent the people. It's kind of like, anyways. So I hope people
So
got
back to the
over,
Fed. So back to the Fed.
over
You were
already.
saying, yeah, that you were saying you were talking about
Back to the
war.
Fed.
Yeah.
So the Fed, the Fed right now is literally becoming like the Fed. Like you know how people in movies are like, shit, let's go, bro. The Fed's coming. The Feds are coming. Or they could say something like they could say Nick Fuentes, he's a Fed. Or they go, this Nima guy, he's a Fed man. He's a Fed plant. When you say the Fed in that sense, I think Kevin Warsh is now actually a Fed. In that, look, before the criticism of the Federal Reserve was it's neither Fed, it's neither federal. The Federal Reserve is neither federal and it's neither a reserve. What do they reserve? They don't reserve anything, right? Uh, they call themselves federal. They're not federal. They're an organization of private bankers. Like yeah, like the central bank in China, in Australia, in the UK, they're absolutely funded by the public sector. The Federal Reserve, no, they're just a banking association that's actually in charge of the printer. But right now, Kevin Warsh, as we have seen, is actually as close to being a Fed as any Federal Reserve president has been in the last century. So what I'm predicting is this: tomorrow, I'll go with the market in the short term, but not in the intermediate term. What I mean is, tomorrow I'll go with the market. I don't think he hikes rates tomorrow. Could be wrong. I'm not in the camp of saying hike rates. I don't think he hikes rates tomorrow, but I disagree with the market, and this is where the alpha is. I disagree with the market that 3, 4, 6 months out from now, I think he does not hike rates. I think he keeps rates in check. He might even cut rates once, especially before Trump's midterm elections, because Trump's desperate to win this election. I've said this many times in my videos and in my Discord. This is not something I'm saying just because oil prices drop because end of the war. I've said this before. Tomorrow, the important thing to watch is if Kevin Warsh is going to say he's going to be if Kevin Warsh is going to say he's going to be what's the word he's going to be hawkish or dovish. And the thing is this: he's dovish means he leans towards cutting rates. Hawkish means he leans towards QT and hiking rates. Now, I think he will say that he's hawkish. He will say we're very concerned about inflation. We're watching it closely. Inflation, inflation, inflation. He will try to say he's hawkish because he's trying to earn the respect of the markets. But that doesn't mean, but I think he's lying. That doesn't mean he's going to hike rates. I think he's going to do the opposite, which is he's going to cut interest rates instead, or at least hold rates steady. Why is that? Well, can you Google right now for a headline from Wall Street Journal, which says Kevin Warsh says Fed no longer needs to explain everything. If you type in those keywords, you should be able to find a Wall Street Journal article, which came out like about last week. Basically, essentially, he's saying, you know, the good old days when
What was it
Jerome
again?
Powell used to say, hey,
Could you repeat that
Kevin
again?
Warsh,
Oh, Kevin Warsh. Okay.
Kevin Warsh,
Yep.
yeah, Fed does
Yep.
not need to explain. So basically, what he's trying to say is, you remember in the good old days with Jerome Powell, he basically explains everything. He basically says, "Oh, we will hike rates if inflation picks up, and we look at this inflation number. We look at this inflation number. We look at doesn't need to explain. Needs to stop explaining everything. So the decision making process is totally transparent, and it's basically going to be like, oh well, you can question them. You can say, well, Federal Reserve, why did you just lower interest rates? We just had inflation tick up. Then why did you cut interest rates? That's extremely irresponsible. It's irresponsible and it's bad for America. You should be kicked out of your job. That's because they explain everything and you need to follow all the rules. You, you need to look at what they tell you what they're looking at, and they need to justify every decision. But this new Fed chairman, this Kevin Warsh, he comes in and he already tells you, he tells the Wall Street Journal, we need to stop explaining everything. It's kind of like you with your kids. You're like, okay, if you finish your homework, then you can watch half an hour of TV. The kid finishes homework. You turn on the TV. Oh, the World Cup is on. The World Cup is on, and you really want to watch the World Cup because Brazil's playing Argentina. And your kid says, but you promised me before I go to sleep, right? Half an hour of TV, and I'm going to sleep in 45 minutes, so I must watch my TV. The old Fed would be like, all right, you got me. You got me. I can't go back on my words. Here, watch half an hour of TV. The new Fed would be like, no, I don't need to explain to you why daddy's watching TV and you're not watching TV. You just go to sleep now. Tough luck, right? This is not a democracy. I don't have to explain myself. Your kid goes to sleep. You turn on TV and watch your World Cup, right? That's the situation we're getting into. So, do you think that fits the narrative, the explanation that I've given you guys already? That this guy is going to bullshit to the market and say, oh, yeah, we'll be responsible. It's all about inflation. It's all about protecting the middle class. It's all about hammering inflation until American US dollar is safe from inflation. And then he turns around 2 months from now, 3 months, 4 months from now, and cuts interest rates even when inflation is still above 2.5, 2.8, 3%. Because then when people asks him, well, why are you cutting interest rates when inflation has gone up a little bit, hasn't come down at all? He would say, buddy, did you read the Wall Street Journal? It says the Fed needs to stop explaining everything. That's how I see the situation with the Fed playing out. That's my prediction. I could be wrong, but by the time you guys watch this video out there, chances are you're gonna know if I got this call right or wrong. Oh, sorry, I've lost your sound for a moment there.
Thank you, Pablo. I know it's late over there,
Yeah.
man. I appreciate you doing this, and I want to say, everyone, please join our trading community. We do a free trial where you literally can join our trading community. Pablo and I co-founded a trading community in 2021. It's June 2026, so we've actually literally done 5 years. I think it was June 12th that we opened up our community. So, congratulations, Pablo, on our 5-year anniversary. Thank you to everyone who's helped us. And yeah, we have over 40,000 traders in our Discord community. If you want to learn more about crypto macro trends, we have a team of analysts. We have someone that could coach you in there. Questions, answers. You could figure out what the market sentiment is, and you could learn from Pablo. And he does the volume of content and analysis that he does in there. He could get paid, $30, $40, $50,000 maybe a month from a hedge fund to provide that sort of analysis. And he talks to members and he engages, and you could figure out what's going on. I will say, no doubt about it, Pablo teaches me things I never knew as a guy who's an American. For example, I didn't know that Elon Musk was in China and his son was wearing Chinese attire. That tells me how important China is to him as a businessman. And that says to me, okay, well, if it's important to him, why is it not important to me? And I think one of the best investments I made was getting in somewhat early on crypto in China. And that part of that was Pablo. And I think the more we go into what's called a multipolar world, I encourage everyone to look that up, whether you like it or not. It's perhaps whether you like, I could tell you I don't like it, but what I like and what comes are not the same thing. And it's important as adults to accept things that you may not like. You don't need to like it. I don't like it, but am I going to ignore it like a dummy, like a dumb idiot, like an idiot? No, important you understand and you learn. So if you join our trading community, we would love to have you, and you get a 1-day free trial and you get to try out the research for free. The link's in my profile, the link's in our profile. And we'll be back either next week or the following. And we can continue to keep going. Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you, Nima. And that's some very wise words. I hope everyone pays attention to that, what Nima just said. He said, as an American, I can see a multipolar world is coming, which means you're going to have a number of different powers, not just one superpower. I don't like it. He says, I don't like it. But it's not up to me. The world will move that way. I just have to get used to it. It's not about what I like, but for my family to do well, to survive, to prosper, for my lineage to prosper, I just have to learn how to invest in that new world. And that's so important for everybody sitting and listening to this message right now, or if you're watching on a different platform. So you can come in free trial for 1 day and listen to the kind of knowledge that people like Nima and myself and some other experts in our Discord have, which are obviously, as you can see, very unique. Nobody talks about the knowledge I just imparted to you guys on this aspect of economics. I challenge you to find one guy out there who can tell you what's going on in the world to the extent that Nima and I can tell you about. Right. So thank you for your time. We'll catch you guys next episode.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. Cheers, guys. Bye bye.
Cheers.